Chapter 1, Inspiration Techniques and Originality in Branding, I guess. So this first chapter I've dedicated a little extra time towards just because I feel it's really crucial to find yourself and to find your inspirations and motivations to truly become the artist that you want to be. This has been a huge part of my process with the Muerte brand. And everybody I've shared this with has found it very valuable. So I'm going to be sharing it with all of you to hopefully inspire and help you identify motivations, inspirations, and getting into that mindset that we all strive to be in. So music is subjective, obviously. But to me, there's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad. Really, at the end of the day, it's all just sound, which is waves in the air that vibrate our eardrums, and our brain translates that as, music, and we enjoy that for some reason. And so even though it's just this kind of weird nothingness, I'm confident that all of you watching this have had a moment where music has given you chills or inspired you and inspired thoughts and ideas, or given you intense emotions, or made you move your body or something like that, right? And so it's really about creativity, I think, is what we connect with. And creativity is what separates a songwriter from a player. Anybody can learn to play a song on the piano or the guitar or anything like that and perform it, but it takes creativity to really make a composer, producer, songwriter special. So it's all about diving into your own creative mind and letting the ideas flow. So talking about getting into the creative mindset, there's a million different ways to become inspired. It could be reading a book or watching a movie or playing a video game or, going outside, getting exercise, hanging out with friends or loved ones or meeting someone. There's really no limit to what might inspire someone. So you want to find what inspires you in your life, and you want to keep track of the things that do kind of inspire you. Keep track of when you feel the most inspired. To go and make music is basically the gist of that. Be very careful about looking at the times when you feel most inspired, and not simply the times when you create a solid idea, because as most of you who have been producing for some time might know, there's not always a direct correlation between being inspired and making something awesome. There's lots of times when I jump into Ableton and I'm feeling my most inspired and I'm really stoked on something, and I just, for whatever reason, the pieces aren't connecting, and that's fine. It's not always going to be the case where we're making something amazing every single time, but the more times we are in this creative mindset and inspired to make something, the better it's going to be. So it's really a curious feeling of real creation when you do end up channeling those inspirations into a piece of music that connects with you, because that's what this is all about, and that's a huge part of why I get enjoyment out of this. So taking a closer look at your motivations behind why you want to create is important, and a good place to start if you're struggling to find what might inspire you. Anyone can easily say that they're motivated by, the love of the music, or, the feeling that it brings to others, the love of the scene, the love of the creation of it. But, a lot of times the motivations for people can be the result of fear or expectations. Whether they admit it or not, every artist is vulnerable to a fear of judgment in some form. And we need to ask the question to ourselves, are we creating for the true expression of ourselves, or just what we think might be the most tolerable, the quickest to people, to audiences, If the latter are the thoughts that's in your mind when you're in the DAW, it can become very difficult to actually end up creating something true to you, and being that true artist. You're going to notice you arrive at points where you're going to have decisions to make, or you're going to think you have decisions to make, and you're kind of at this fork in the road. And you start to overanalyze what the track should be and not what it is in the moment. This leads to hesitancy and, the fear of expectations or criticism or fear of failure. So, to me, failure really doesn't exist in music. Not every track is a winner. Not every track needs to be a winner, right? Music is a learning experience that helps us find more about ourselves and, who we are, and understand what our emotions and feelings are about. It's an expressive, creative form. So there is no right or wrong. There's no good or bad, like I said. It's a tough thing to practice, but the more that you can write music and produce out of your motivations and inspirations, whether it's going well or not, as opposed to creating out of fear and expectation, the more your art is going to feel real, and the more it's going to translate to the listener as being real. Like humans, we know when a song and a piece of art is raw and real. Like we can feel it. There's something deeper that we can understand about it. So when it comes time to create in the DAW, learn to let the numbers and the analytics go. Just, try and let that escape your mind. Because they're not going to help you progress your art in a meaningful way, and they're creativity killers. So for me, a big source of inspiration is the satisfaction that I personally get from seeing my brand's image align with the sound that I had initially envisioned for it. I'm not talking about numbers or success from a brand growth standpoint. I'm specifically talking about seeing my initial creative vision come into fruition, however small that might be. It could be a song, it could be a melody, or it could be, as simple as a soundscape that captures, the intentions of the brand. And that really reinforces in me the desire to go and create more. So I'm going to give you an example here. I went to school at Icon Collective in Los Angeles in 2019. And one of the assignments that we were tasked with was to create kind of a mood board vision thing for a brand concept that we felt connected to. So this is mine. I printed it out for you. I don't know how well you can see that, but I'm going to kind of go over it here. It's a tool that I can refer to, and it's something that I have where I can look at this and go, this is what the extension of me is going to look like. So, I start off with, I'm going to move up a little bit here. We have this main page, and, I did it up nice. So I have Muerte. This is before I launched the Muerte brand, by the way. So have my logo. It's all kind of themed. Sorry, the print quality is not amazing, but you get the gist of it. So I have an overarching idea. Dubstep, EDM, rhythm will draw on themes of darkness, death, keywords to associate the brand, ritualism, occultism, stuff like that, So I have some imagery down here, really just kind of, the point of this is to show somebody this and have them know exactly what the brand is and what your vision is. So I have target audience here, I have assets, social media handle, like my logo and plans for a skull emblem thing, which I did later on. I have a page dedicated to art style here. And, this has changed over time, but all of the concepts and themes and ideas remain pretty consistent here. I have rollout strategies, strategies to get quick hype on the project, receive support from friends and bigger artists that I know, produce official or bootleg remixes of popular songs in the scene to gain attention from the original artists, and build up some hype around that way. And then I have, a 1 week checkpoint. Very, very straightforward and simple, begin content creation, like send out a demo reel. 6 month checkpoint, should have at least an EP or a single released so far. Brand should be consistent with pushing content, staying up to date on socials. 1 year should have a number of releases in the discography with a consistent art style throughout. So dark, ritualistic, occultish. Brand should be gaining traction, has developed a fan base across socials. So these are just simple, easy checkpoints, and then I have final thoughts. So this is just my thoughts on the brand. So the point of me showing you this is just this has been something that I can draw my inspiration from. This helps because Like I said, this is something I can look at and go, this is what the brand is supposed to be. This is what Muerte is supposed to be. Or this is what, I should say this is what I initially want this to be, and this has helped me maintain consistency and really kind of just, create for Muerte. So you don't have to do something that big. You don't have to make a big PDF or do a printout like this. You could just simply have a Word document with some text and some images, or do a Pinterest mood board. It really doesn't matter. It can be as simple as you want. The point is, it's something you can point to and go, this is me. This is what I want. This is the extension of myself and what it's going to look like. And it's a hugely helpful tool to gain confidence in the DAW and help promote your inspiration. So once you've found what inspires you, what your intentions and motivations are, it's just about getting in the right groove. This isn't something that you can choose to happen. It just happens, right? It's a feeling that comes and goes with time, unfortunately. But we want to be in this state as much as possible and take advantage of the times that we are as best as possible. So that leads me to my next point, which is get your workflow speed as quick as you possibly can. Practice keyboard shortcuts, have things saved to your collections, have racks saved, groups saved. I'm going to show you in Ableton how to save things very, very quickly. Anything you can do to minimize wasted time is going to just help you when you're in the DAW. You're going to make things quicker, and you're going to be able to capitalize on being in that creative mindset more.